regiments were made up of militias, town militias. Well, they basically came to fight with what they had. Typically, they show a sleeved outer garment of some sort, either a frock coat or a sleeved waistcoat, breeches. Both these gentlemen are wearing frock coats. Would have had, more than likely, had a waistcoat on under the frock coat. An 18th century dress. You basically would never go out in public without a coat on. Because if you did, you were improperly dressed. So you rarely would have seen anybody just in shirt sleeves. Socks, leather shoes. The shoes at that time were straight lasted. What that means, for those that don't know, is there was no left or right. Your feet formed left and right. Put the shoes on, and you just make sure you put the same shoe on the same foot whenever you put it on. Over some time, your feet would form left and right. It would have come with whatever means of carrying food items or utensils. Scott over here has a knapsack, which is basically a tube. Tube slung over the shoulder. He has a board, it looks like, for a canteen. Mark here has a bottle canteen covered in leather. They were supposed to come to fight with a bayonet or a tomahawk, some sort of edged weapon besides. That would have been it, besides a pocket knife, possibly. For those that did not have a musket, actual musket, that had a lug for a bayonet, socket bayonet, they would have had what's called plug bayonets, which was pretty much just a long dagger type of blade that would have stuck down into the barrel. Obviously, if you're going to stick something down into the barrel, you're not going to be firing that weapon. So that was only used when it became very close combat. A little bit later in the war, for the troops up in New England, when the French became involved and started supplying us with clothing, with money, with weapons, they supplied us, actually there was a shipment of 10,000 coats called lottery coats. They were contracted coats made up quickly for the troops here, shipped over. We received 5,000 brown coats with red facings. There was 5,000 blue coats with white facings. The troops in this area, at least our regiment, the 2nd Massachusetts Regiment, which is actually an actual regiment of the time, received the brown coats with the red facings. And this was right around 1779 that happened. So if you two gentlemen step up, please. They're shorter coats in length. Again, put together very quickly. All of our clothing we make ourselves or have made for us. The wool for these particular coats came from England. It was spun on looms that are 150 years old. It's as close to being actual as we can get today. All the fabrics used were natural fabrics, wools, linens, cottons. Obviously, they didn't have polyesters and nylons and all that good stuff that we have nowadays. Maybe not.
Which is actually a good thing, because those melt when you get polyesters, and synthetics melt and can burn your skin, whereas the embers, when it gets onto the natural fibers, just makes a little hole and stops.
The wool is warm. The wool is worn during the summer. One good thing about the natural fibers is they do breathe. so it does help a little bit. But regardless, wool is warm, especially as heavy as these coats on, and when you're carrying everything, carrying a 10-pound musket, march on march, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. Shoulder, parallel. Right about, hey. Just so that you can see the back sides. At this time that the Army was issuing haversacks to carry really food. That's what it was meant to carry. When they went out on the march, this is owned by the Army, they would put your rations in it, they would have handed you your haversack and sent you out. In return, you would turn in your haversack. Larger collections. Like that. Hold a varying amount, somewhere between 24 and 30 cartridges. Right about. Hey. The muskets order your firelocks. The muskets of the time when the French became involved, they started supplying us with muskets. The Charleville was the musket that we received from the French. This musket here. One nice thing about the Charleville, quickly, is the French had the foresight to actually make the musket with these bands, which were removable. The bands could be a little spring-loaded clip to press. The bands slide off like that, and then you can remove the barrel to easily clean the weapon. The brown vest. The vest was made a little bit differently. The barrel was held into the stock using pins. So in order to remove this barrel, you would have to knock out the pins to remove the barrel. So it does take a little bit longer to manage it. This is the British weapon, the brown vest. We're using brown vests as well. We're also using any kind of a smooth bore musket that they would have had at the time. But when we really started getting into the swing of the war and the French were supplying us with arms, it started moving over to the Charleville. And the Charleville was actually copied. The Springfield weapons, the Springfield muskets and rifles were actually copied from the Charleville design. Joe, firelocks. Right about face. Good. March. Oh. Right about face. Good, Joe. Good. Okay. Later in the war, we moved to, and this would be around 1780, 1781. We moved to a blue with white facing scope. Something else that was issued at the time were these. It was called overalls. They come all the way down across the shoe and connected underneath with a leather strap to hold them down. These were advantageous, especially when you were running through woods, brush, brambles, things like that. Help protect the legs. Some other things that were used to help protect the legs are the spatter dashes here. That's pretty much the change with the uniform in the late part of the war. It just, the colors got different. The musicians actually wore the reverse colors in their uniform. So if the soldier was wearing blue with the white facings, the musicians would be wearing white with blue facings. It's just a reverse of the colors. Washington noticed that during the hot summers, he really needed something a little lighter weight to put the troops in. It was interesting in some of these battles, because of the heat, they lost more soldiers to heat than they did actually to wounds generated by the weaponry.